So now that I'm being filmed, I'm going to have to stand up here all day long flexing, so that's not helpful. But I'm Stuart Bradshaw, like Angie said. Actually been working with St. Mary's for a while now. Khaki and I have become friends. I know she's with her daughter, out of college there, so it's a bummer. I was hoping to get to see her because I always like spending some time with Khaki. Hey, good to see you. So today, pretty simple. I'm going to take you through what is Journeys, what Journeys has to offer, giving you even down to specifics on how the program is going to be developed. I've been with Journeys since it was first built 6 years ago. So I dealt with many different teachers, many different grade levels. I'm a former first and fifth grade teacher. I live here in Maryland. I live all the way at the other end of the state, though, so I live on the Maryland-Delaware line. So I passed 3 funeral processions coming down here. That's all, okay, so that's odd, right? Okay, I was like, what's going on? There's 3 of them. I'm next. Okay, so when we look at Journeys, first I'm going to start with just some very basics. What is it and who wrote it and some of our authorship team. I think you'll notice and recognize many of the names, especially if you look right up at the top. Irene Fountas, this is the first program that's a core reading program she's ever signed on for. I will tell you our authorship team is not a rubber stamp authorship team. I've been in publishing 15 years. They actually are hands-on. They've written lesson plans. You'll actually see how Irene has put together some lesson plans for you, as well as if you look down, you'll see Shane Templeton. You have his word study too, and this is, again, one of the first core programs that he's ever been part of, and he's actually written many lessons that I'll show you when we get to that part, that it can be very beneficial for your teachers. And then we also have you can just see Carol Jago and different people up there, so we've got a very strong authorship team. Your teachers are using the 2017. We are going to today look through, last part of our time together will be the tech. We'll take a look at the technology. Fortunately for you, most of it you're going to use it for is just navigation of materials. So that tech training is going to be a little mellower than it typically is for the teachers, because we have to go into some other ways, but I am going to show you some of the things they're going to be doing too. Of course, we're going to start with the program overview. I'm super nervous because I'm being filmed. This is like so funny for me because I am like not a nervous person, but I'm like, they're watching. Plus, everything's recorded, so I have to be really careful what I say. And then we're going to do a component carousel, just really getting you used to all of the different components that are in the program. We're going to take a dive into the teacher's edition so you get an idea when your teachers are struggling with pacing, which they will struggle with pacing unless they have 3 hours of English language arts, because there is a lot in Journeys. I always say, the goal of Journeys is to help them make good decisions on what they're going to use, because they simply could not possibly do everything that we have for them in the Journeys program. Okay, I'm originally from Southern California. Probably will say totally awesome a bunch of times today because it's Friday, so it's Casual Talk Friday. First, component carousel. I want to tell you what is in those boxes that the teachers are getting. First and foremost, one of the biggest pieces and parts are our leveled readers. And here you can see Angie's brought samples of our leveled readers. There are 5 levels of leveled readers. You have your on, above, below, ELL, and vocabulary. So each time, and the vocabulary is always housed in the yellow bucket, so it's kind of easy to find out. These are all Fountas and Pinnell leveled, as well as DRA leveled, as well as Lexile leveled, and I'm going to show you a great resource on how you might utilize these books differently than the classroom teacher. I always tell people I love guided reading. It is my favorite thing ever. I love doing running records. I love understanding what a student is doing while they're reading, and I had a fabulous coach. My coach was a reading specialist. Actually, I took over mid-year her class because she got promoted. So I was a long-term sub, fresh out of college, and so she literally lorded over me. It was like boot camp. She was every day saying, don't say that, say this, do this, and it was terrific though, because those 3 months, I came out really knowing how to do guided reading. And my first principal said, wow, what school did you go to? I went, University of Gina Poyer. And she goes, oh, Gina's good. So and so as we look through these books, we're going to talk about how that's going to look in your class, your teachers' classrooms, and how you can give them support. So before I take another step, I really meant to ask, If you guys could share with me kind of some of the roles, some of the things you're going to do to support your teachers so I get a good understanding. So just share out with me. Okay, you're not sure what you do? Me either. Okay. Data, okay. Running records, all right, we cover that. Small group, co-teaching, modeling lessons, okay, terrific. Intervention, RTI, we're going to talk about a lot today. Testing, coordinating, sharing new curriculum. Okay, so that gives me a good idea. I think I had it about right as I was anticipating coming here with you today. So don't tell me to point at the chart again. Please just give me some feedback, people. I got to have some. This is a two-way. This is a relationship. I feel all alone up here. Okay, so our leveled readers, we do have a leveled reader app where you can actually have the leveled readers on a device, and you can actually have the students read into the app. It has some good functionality. It is not something that came with your adoption. So that would be if you had some extra funds or something along those lines. I am supposed to mention it to you and show it to you. You can access all of the leveled readers with the online access you have. You just don't have the app, which is a little more functionality. Okay, but you can see all of the leveled readers on any device. We'll do that when we look at the tech part of our time together. We want to give them additional support and vocabulary. You're going to see a lot of emphasis on vocabulary in Journeys and our pathway to it. It is also a leveled reader, so it has a Fountas and Pinnell level. You'll notice that almost all of the vocabulary readers are nonfiction. Just that way, students, and you'll actually see, especially in 4th and 5th grade that you have right now, you'll actually see that there's a big emphasis, almost 70%-ish, don't hold me to that, are about nonfiction in all of the leveled readers for 4th and 5th grade. So again, we find nonfiction gives us consistency of application of the vocabulary because the vocabulary is consistent in all 5 levels of the books that are offered for that week. So you get lots of vocabulary exposure and, of course, the vocabulary reader. Okay. All right, then we have our grab and go kit. This is really our teacher resource kit in many, many ways. When in doubt, it's probably in here, okay? I call it my little suitcase because it looks like a little suitcase. That's terrible. I don't know why I said that. But you can see what we did was we organized it in a manner that many teachers have always kind of organized their materials. So instead of having an enrichment blackline master and a reteach blackline master, we pulled out the enrichment for lesson 1 and the reteach for lesson 1 and put it into a lesson 1 folder. So instead of having a weekly assessment big blackline master book, the weekly assessments for lesson 1 are in the lesson 1 folder. So I always encourage my teachers, sometimes if you have another great activity that you did, you could just slide it right in this folder. Some of my teachers will put the vocabulary cards in this folder. What we've done for you is made this box so tight that when you slip one extra piece of paper in, the thing explodes. So you're welcome. You're welcome for that. So oftentimes I'll tell my teachers, if you want to pull them out, if they pulled them out and put them in filing cabinets or egg crate, doesn't matter to me how they organize them. But there is one folder in here that is the most important folder. In the back, you actually have 2 folders, but the most important one says additional resources. Because we plucked out everything for lesson 1 and put it in lesson 1 folder, and then the lesson 2 and the lesson 3, what if it was something that might need for lesson 1 and lesson 3 and lesson 10? Well, we're not going to put that thing in every single lesson that it would go with. Makes sense, right? The folders would just be kind of goofy. So this is kind of the catch-all folder. This will be something your teachers will say, I see it talks about instructional routines. Where are the instructional routines? Simple answer, just always, first place to look, additional resources folder. It's a great place to look because graphic organizers could be used with any lesson, right? So you have some graphic organizers. So I oftentimes tell my teachers, pull this out and actually put it in the front because you're probably going to need to reference this because this is kind of the catch-all of additional resources, hence the name. And there are additional assessment opportunities too. This is also where the answer keys are for the weekly test. So again, you have the 2 folders in the back, one that says additional resources and one that says assessments. And those oftentimes are the place where if teachers are not able to find something, great place to start. Just look in one of those 2 folders first. Remember, everything's online. So everything that's in this box is also online. This is differentiated instruction. So in here, you have practice for enrichment kids. So you have that kind of practice for enrichment, and then you have opportunities for reteach. What I want to show you is there's a really cool little coding that we've done. Okay. All right. The fewer the sides, the lower the level. So if I see here a circle has no sides, I know it came from my below level bucket. A triangle has 3 sides, I know it came from my on level bucket. And a square has 4 sides, so I know it came from above level, right on. Then you have your other 2, vocabulary reader clearly just states vocabulary reader on it. And then the other one's your ELL, which we've said in the past, maybe for your diamonds in the rough. Okay, so it's a diamond. I know it's a rhombus, math geek, but we'll call it a diamond for today. I did have a person, she's like, you know that's not a diamond, it's a rhombus. I'm like, and no one likes you. Oops, that's on tape. It was in Washington State, so she'll never know I said that. Okay, so hence the practice that's in here is above level or below level, so guess what's on those? A square and a circle. So that way when you pull this out, you immediately know, aha, this is the below level practice because it'll have a circle on it. Or, oh, this is the above level practice because it'll have a square on it. But there is, and I'm going to show it to you in a moment here, there is one thing that would be missing, the triangle. Why do you think triangle would be missing in here? It's on level, and they have their student book. This is the on-level practice. So that wouldn't be differentiated. This would just be standard practice. So their on-level practice is right here in our reader's notebook. And this is just essentially all of the additional pages they would need to accomplish the different tasks. Grammar, comprehension, some spelling. So this is their practice book. We call it the reader's notebook. It's simply their practice book. So you can see these 2 things work in conjunction with each other. So if I'm differentiating from here, that means not every student is necessarily going to complete every page in here. Because if you're differentiating, it's technically scaffolded. Because this is scaffolded instruction, it takes the worksheet out of here and makes it easier to access or gives it more challenging. Like vocabulary practice, this might have 2 words given to them and 2 words they have to figure out, or 3 words they have to figure out. The above level, they have to figure out all the words. The below level might give them 3 and they only have to figure out 1 or 2. See, so it scaffolds the practice. So those 2 things really work together for your students for practice. We do have some additional trade books that that the students will use throughout the school year. In 4th and 5th grade, they actually have 5 titles, and that's 1 is used after Unit 2, 1 is used after Unit 4, and 3 are used at the end of the school year. I'll tell you a little more about those as we move. Here's the thing. That means the first trade book they're going to get to is not going to occur for the first 12 weeks or 10 weeks or so. So it's nothing that needs to be worried about yet. Okay? Further, that's just a recommendation. You can do the extended reading at any point. And I don't remember, you guys put together a really good document. Angie, do you remember the document that Kaki put together? Yeah, thank you. Okay. So on the curriculum map, it talks about where to do these novels. So your people that put together the curriculum map did map out kind of where these might fall in a different place. Now, the ones at the end of the school year, the 3 titles that come at the end, replace leveled readers. So there are 3 titles. There's ones that selects out a little below, one that's a little above, and one that's right on grade level, and they replace leveled readers. So the last unit, Unit 6, they use trade book. Units 2 and Unit 4, everyone in the class gets the same trade book. And so they get to see a cover-to-cover, have a cover-to-cover experience, because we want them to have that cover-to-cover experience. Questions so far? No? Good. Just joking. I do that all the time. Questions, anybody? Questions so far? So I kind of the materials that are going to be, coming out of those boxes. I always tell my teachers, sometimes a teacher will say, did I get the whole school's shipment? Because there's so many parts and components to journeys. So tell them, don't worry. The idea is you're going to have a chance to really go through. We're going to take a little deeper dive into the teacher edition. Because you'll be in as teachers, you can actually walk right into a classroom, pop open your computer, and you can see the exact instruction that teacher's delivering. Because you can pull right up on to the page of instruction, or if you're coaching, or if you're co-teaching. You can do all of your planning and do all of those things right through the website because you can see everything right on the website. We do have 2 pathways. You'll hear me refer to this as the core TE. This has everything they would ever need to teach English language arts. Your teachers, I tell them, no longer do they have to be hunter-gatherers. They just have to be planners because it has everything they would ever need right here in this core TE. We did give an optional pathway through our literacy and language guide. Some of you nodded whenever Shane Templeton's name came up, so I'm sure many of you are familiar with Words Their Way. Shane Templeton wrote mini lessons in here for daily Words Their Way practice. Okay? His research is all in this vocabulary practice. So this is outstanding vocabulary practice. This is just written in the Words Their Way model. So your teachers, if they are avid users of Words Their Way, don't need to write lesson plans any longer because Shane's written them in here for them. If you're familiar with Lucy Calkin's workshop models, Irene Fountas wrote many lessons for all of the selections that reflects that way of teaching too. So again, someone's really comfortable with the Lucy Calkin's reader's workshop model, they can come right in here and they've got many lessons written by Irene Fountas to reflect that workshop model. This standard comprehension instruction. It's very good. They do great close reading in here. This is just written in the workshop model, written in the Words Their Way model. Okay? Because we understand that many teachers are utilizing those systems. So we've given them this opportunity in here. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about this as we go through our time together today to kind of get an idea of how you might use it. You may find teachers don't touch it if it's not, a part of the district plan. That's okay, because what did I tell you is in here? Everything they need to teach everything in this program. This is for alternative models and extra writing practice. But I think what you see, our writing plan, it's fantastic. I really like our writing plan. So, in the teacher's editions, they have 6 volumes. You'll notice in units 2 and 4, they'll have that extra purple tab because that's the extended reading. That's the novel practice. We won't have one of those in units 1, 3, and 5 because there's no extended reading that goes along with those. Okay? So that gives you a little heads up there. Okay, kind of jumped the gun on that slide. Sorry, I got too excited. But anyway, there's that. And, okay. So, organized it with the tabs. All of the Common Core standards they're going to cover right here. Very easy to reference. It tells them exactly what lessons those standards fall in. So if they need documentation, it's a piece of cake. You've got all your whole group, your small group. You've got your intervention. We'll talk about additional resources than I had already mentioned. The purple tab, which is the extended reading. One of the first things that's often asked in this day and age of the new standards is once we get to our whole group, we talk a lot about text complexity. And here's the text complexity rubric. So this gives you both of the different, I love this 4th grade one because the very first selection is Invasion from Mars. So it's an excerpt from Invasion from Mars, but the paired text is the history of radio. Isn't that cool? Because that was a huge radio event, wasn't it? So this is one of my absolute favorite pairings in the entire program because I'm like, think about our day and age and the technology that students use and those kinds of things and how influential that one little series that people came in midway and thought that the Martians were here. Like, for real. I mean, it's pretty amazing story. But in here, it talks about if there's Alexiles. In this case, because it was a radio play, there's not an Alexile for Invasion to Mars because it's an excerpt. But the Lexiles will vary. Because remember, we're picking selections that are grade level appropriate, can be paired well, and can be done so you have your text comparison, and you're able to do your close reading. So you also will see a Fountas and Pinnell level. Because Fountas and Pinnell leveling, as well as DRA leveling, takes into account content. Lexile leveling does not. It literally looks at sentence structure, word count, those kinds of things. So I kind of wish they hadn't really pushed in this new standards the term Lexile, because then everyone thinks, that's what you want. Yes, Angie? I always use the example, Old Man by the Sea. Okay? That Lexile is a 4th grade readability. Who would put that in a 4th grader's hands? Content-wise, that's not appropriate. Okay? So then we look at content-wise and we go, okay, that's for 10th grade or 11th grade, I think, wherever they recommend it. But that's because Hemingway wrote in short sentences. He didn't use complex sentences. He wrote like he was. He was a simple man, and he lived a simpler life, and he did simple things like bullfight. I don't know where that came from. And then on the facing page of the text complexity rubric is my favorite part of our newest edition. This is in the 2017. This is new reflective of the 2017. It's on page T9 if you do have a teacher edition. It's our text x-ray. I highly recommend that you go ahead and flip to that and take a look at it. Good to see you again. You can use this one. Yep. What the text x-ray does, if you're there on T9, it breaks down the main big talking points that you're going to have for the selection. These are reflected on all the teacher pages. So you're going to see those reflected in the wraparounds on the teacher pages, but this gives you a snapshot of where you're going to go throughout this discussion with the students as you're working with this. So this is one of the most popular new additions that was from 2014 that was used at Duke Elementary and now into our 2017. This text x-ray has been a huge hit because teachers had asked for it. So as we're looking through the TE, you'll see opportunities to where the text x-ray still is there, but here's the snapshot of exactly what they're going to do with that selection. Okay, if you turn with me to T10, you'll see the weekly planner. If you look closely at the weekly planner on T10, so again, just turn one page in there from the text x-ray. You'll see there's a lot to do on day 1. Because you're introducing the spelling, you're doing the read aloud, you're doing things that you're not going to do on subsequent days of the week. So day 1 can be a bear. It's tough, okay? Also, look what it says on day 1 as you look down. You should see yellow wording in a blue box. What's it say there? First read, okay? This is when we're starting our close reading. So we first read. Look at day 2. Look down and what do you see? Second read. Great. And look at day 3. It's not color-coded, but if you look down, what does it say? Yeah, self-select, independent. That's a close read, isn't it? A first read, a second read with analyzing text, and then an independent activity. So this is what I tell my teachers to make it very simple for them. Over these 3 days, I'm conducting my close read. Because they start to panic thinking, I've got to get through a first read in day 1. Well, in a perfect world, okay, But we don't teach in perfect worlds, do we? And when I was a 5th grade teacher, I had students straight from Mexico because I taught in Southern California. I had one student that came from Mexico, and he had had no formal schooling in Mexico. So he was at a kindergarten level in his primary language, and now 5th grade, and I had to give him a standardized test. That's a whole different story. The thing is, what I tell my teachers is the second read, when we look at a close read, we're analyzing text. If a student asks a deep question that leads us to analyzing text, and it's day 1, do I go, no, 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 that's for day 2 and the second read. We will not do that today. Of course not, right? So what I tell people, sure, sometimes it falls perfectly first read, second read with analyzing text. Most of the time, it's first read, second read, analyzing text. We need to get through the close read in days 1, 2, and 3. So if your teachers are panicking, I can't get through the first read in day 1, say, remember the little man said, it's okay. You know, if you have to finish it up in day 2, it's fine. And guess what? If you didn't get through the entire selection, the students will still get into college. It's, you know, it's like sometimes we panic because we're completionists, aren't we? I mean, we got to complete the task because that's how teachers, and that's okay. But sometimes it's okay to say, we did some really deep discussions. We didn't get through everything. We're okay. I conducted a close read. Because that's number 1. Need to conduct a close read. Days 1, 2, and 3, conduct a close read. What does it say on day 3? Independent work. When do students do independent work? During a reading class. Centers, right? During small group instruction, right? So if my first and second read spilled into day 3, am I okay? You're okay. You see? So we've given you some breathing space is the point. Because guess where the students can continue doing independent practice? Do they have to only do it on day 3? They can continue it in centers on day 4, and they could continue it in centers on day 5 too, couldn't they? Okay, so again, giving them some breathing space. Conduct a close read on days 1, 2, and 3. Don't stress about how it shows or plays it out in the lesson plan. Days 4 and 5, what do you notice is happening in the lesson plan? Yes, we read the second selection, and we compare the texts. Guess what? That's the second of 2 main parts that teachers need to do each week. 1, conduct a close read. 2, compare texts. They cover those 2 things. They've completely covered what the standards are asking when it comes to reading comprehension, comparing of text, text analysis, and even going deeper, text to self, text to world. All of that's being covered in that time. If you also, you'll notice as the teachers are teaching that the second selection is always a shorter selection. So it's easily, if the first selection, in this case, they were flipped. So the first selection was a fictional piece, Invasion from Mars. So the second selection is a nonfiction piece, The History of Radio. So it's an article on history of radio. There always is a balance. So if the first selection is fiction, the second part of the selection will be an article. If the first selection is fiction, the second, or nonfiction, which many times it is, then the second one could be a poem or a folk tale, something along those lines. But they'll connect in some way, just like Invasion from Mars, History of Radio. What's the name of the book in second grade? I've only done this 1,000 times, and I forgot. Anyway, she writes a letter to her teacher, and in it, there's a snake in a box, okay? So it's a fictional piece. Well, the second selection is a nonfiction, Southwestern snakes. So it's an article on Southwestern snakes, because it connects back. The anchor text is what we're doing on days 1, 2, and 3. So therefore, everything comes from the anchor text. The vocabulary comes from the anchor text. Even the grammar connects back to the anchor text, which I think you'll find is really, really innovative. The second selection is connected back to the anchor text. The only thing that's not connected to the anchor text is spelling, for obvious reasons, because that's following how students acquire spelling. They're not spelling words from a selection. They're spelling words that go with the research from Shane Templeton and words their way. So, the ease of this lesson plan, days 1, 2, and 3, close read, days 4 and 5, compare texts. Simple as that. I try to keep it very simple because teachers start to stress. They see those bullet points, and they start to go down those bullet points. And I get it. I get it. And that's why I tell them, keep it real simple on yourself. Just look at the big picture. Okay? So you can tell them the same thing. Just say, hey guys, look at the big picture. You're okay. Questions so far on the planner? One, sure. No, they're broken into lessons.
So, okay, so I'm in Unit 1, and I'm doing the first, so how,
so the lessons go, so when you get to Unit 2, it picks up with Lesson 6. 7, 8, 9, 10. Unit 3 is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay.
So yep, they're ordered that way. I kind of knew where you were going with that. Nope, there are 30 lessons. So there's 6 units, there's 30 lessons, there's 5 per unit, and they go in chronological or numerical order. Yes?
I had a question about the 11 readers. When you say on grade level, below grade level, above grade level, what does that mean? 1 year below grade level? Half a year below grade level?
Yeah, so when we're looking up into 4th and 5th grade, we're getting closer to maybe 9 to 12 months. In the lower grades, we're more 3 to 6, only for obvious reasons. Many times in lower grades, you'll even have a B book that's on level and a B book that's below level. But the content might be more accessible. You see what I mean? So great question. We're really going with Tier 1, which would officially say 6 months. So this would be our Tier 1. And again, so the official term for Tier 1 would say this is 6 months above or 6 months below. Okay. Great question. You know what? Since we're on that, I am going to, oh man. Angie, could you have brought them in order? Gosh. Yeah, okay, blame me. That's it. All right, well, this is going to be hard for me to show you. The ELL reader is the same story as the on-level reader. Okay? Because the ELL reader is for your higher functioning ELL students. Those students that are very close to grade level. Because what we've done is we highlight in the ELL reader, we highlight vocabulary, we label pictures, we remove idioms and English nuances. It's raining cats and dogs. We don't need the cats and dogs. We just need it's raining to understand what's happening. So we'll take off the cats and dogs. Instead of I'm going to the store, said Michael, to pick up some milk, it'll say I'm going to the store to pick up some milk, said Michael. Just because inserting it in the middle, it's just, but so you can see, so this is just a hair. So I tell people this could be a great option for any student. Doesn't have to be an ELL student, but any student that's just falling a touch below grade level, so that they don't really need the below grade level, but they need something that gives them a little more structure and support. And that's the genius of what you have with the ELL reader. So you'll actually see, that's why I always like to show one. Like there's one that, it's called Soccer Sisters. And the ELL one is Sisters That Play Soccer. Because it's giving them more information. Same title, same content inside, but one says Sisters That Play Soccer. The other one's just Soccer Sisters. And that's the on-level one. Yes?
Are there materials for the ELL students who could not read?
Yes. Well, we have a fantastic ELL pathway. I always just like to point that out because many times people immediately jump to this would be an intervention for an ELL. Well, it's an intervention for a higher level ELL that just still needs some language support, but they're real close to grade level. Because yes, to your point, wait till you see, we even have a newcomer's guide for those students that are coming in, like my kids that would come in straight from out of country. Any other questions on our lesson plan? There's one word we removed that I wish they hadn't removed. It used to say suggested weekly planner. I loved that word suggested because I always wanted teachers to know that they need to be empowered to take control and not let the program control them, because it will take them over. Trust me. I see it, and I'm the one that has to stand in front of them, not the editorial people. And they're like, I can't get it all done. I'm like, I know. Okay. Uh-oh. I was afraid that was going to happen. My clicker's been giving me issues the last couple of days. All right. Now, the way the teacher edition is set up in 4th and 5th grade is that it has all of the reading content for the entire week first, and then all of the language arts instruction as a second chunk for the week. That's important to know, especially because you guys work with all grade levels, right? Okay. When your school brings on K through 3, it is not set up that way. Okay, now we'll tackle that when we get K through 3, okay? So if you're in your TE, I'm even going to show you. Can I just borrow yours for a second? All of the reading instruction for the entire week is laid out first, and you'll actually see that they're all blue pages at the top. So this is all 5 days of instruction is all of the blue. So this is your close read and your comparing of texts. Okay, all the way through, and it tells you what kind of falls on day 1. But then look, it turns to green. When it turns to green, now I'm in all of my language arts instruction for the week. So if you look up here, you'll see this is what I would do for day 1 for grammar. This is what I would do for day 1 for spelling, then day 2 for spelling. And then the same with writing. It gives me all 5 days. One of the reasons we've did this, how many of you throughout your years in education have seen where it's departmentalized? Reading is departmentalized, so I'm the reading teacher and you're the language arts teacher. This setup makes it very easy for us. You put one tab on the green pages and you know you're only going to turn to green pages because you're going to instruct out of the green pages. I'm going to instruct out of the blue pages. That's why we've set it up this way, because there's more likely to be departmentalized in 4th and 5th grade than there is in K3. And if we left it the way K3 is set up, you would have to have 17 tabs, and I would have to have 17 tabs because it would be all of the reading language arts for day 1, all of the reading language arts for day 2, and so forth, you see. So we just did it structurally that way. Oftentimes, too, 4th and 5th grade isn't as integrated as far as reading and writing and language arts instruction as K2, because, K3, because of the whole No Child Left Behind, where it was 90 minutes of uninterrupted, that whole thing. That was for K3. So that's another thing. If I'm teaching language arts at a different time of day, just open right to the green tab instead of needing to open to different parts of it. So you have your spelling, your grammar instruction. When we look at the student edition, you'll see that the grammar is integrated. I don't know about you, but grammar was taught in isolation when I was in school. I thought it was its own subject, and I wasn't very good at it. When I married a New Jersey English major, she straightened me up after 17 years. Well, Angie knows my vocabulary has gotten much, much better, huh? Because Angie and I came into the business together 15 years ago, so we go back to the good old days when my daughter ate 35 hot dogs one night. I just kept handing them to her. I didn't know. She was almost 2. My wife wasn't there. I was like, I don't know. She keeps eating them. Yeah, I don't know. She was powering them down. I was like getting her hooked up for the Nathan hot dog eating championship. I was like, train them young. Okay, sorry, I have ADHD. That happens. So when we look at the grammar, it was taught in isolation for me. We do not teach it in isolation. It's actually, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but I really think this is powerful to see that when we go into the grammar is right after we've actually done comparing of texts, then we say now grammar is important. Because what do we always connect grammar to? What's grammar go along with? Writing. But shouldn't grammar also be connected to reading? Because if I understand grammar and grammatical phrases, I can comprehend more effectively too. So that's why we actually make sure students see. We will actually see that we pull, in this case it was action words, and I'm in the Invasion from Mars, and it says, Phillips reported from the site that people were scared. We actually pull from the selection, the grammar, so that students can say, okay, it's connected. I will tell you that's one of the biggest comments I get from teachers. They're like, oh, Stuart, I love the grammar, especially my 4th and 5th grade teachers. And then they follow it up with, but it's killing the kids. Because it's rich, in-depth grammar instruction that maybe they haven't had in the before because we kind of moved away from certain things, didn't we? I came into teaching with the whole language movement back then, when we de-emphasized spelling and those kinds of things too. So, you see things come full circle, but I just want you to know that the spelling instruction built off of Words Their Way research on how students acquire spelling forms, and if you've ever had a chance to see Shane Templeton in person, take it, do it. He's a fantastic speaker. He talks about the importance of core roots, and you start to say, if I had been taught this, I would be a much better speller. My wife is a fantastic speller. I am not a very good speller. Well, now I am. I can't get anything wrong. I even insert different words in for me automatically on my phone. That's a joke on the autocorrect. I can never misspell anything. It just puts in a different word. Okay, so you have the research there. The vocabulary is pulled from the anchor text, because remember, everything connects back to the anchor text. It is not specific to the anchor text, though. Like alien would not be a vocabulary word pulled from Invasion of Mars. Because do they need to know the word alien outside of that selection? Not so much. So a different word that has more universal application, that way they get the practice with it in a selection, but that they get the application of it throughout. So we kind of talked about the close reading, how we're moving through the close reading. Let's take a little closer look at the instructional support that the teachers have. If you turn into the selection, somewhere in the selection, should be right after you'll see it references, here's first read, and remember the text x-ray? Here are some of the components that the text x-ray pulls from, saying these are the major components or the major topic. So you can see it references through. You actually see whenever it first goes into. I'm on T17, T16, T17, but you can turn to just any page where you start seeing the main selection. So here's my Invasion Mars right here. And if you notice right down here at the bottom, that gives me my structure for my close read. But what do you notice in this column here? We also have our reader and task considerations. Remember the rubric that I showed you early on, the text complexity rubric? This is referencing back to the text complexity rubric and now the application of that text complexity. And as you move through, you'll see that, then look, it says first read, and guess what it says over here? Second read. So it's giving us the instruction, because what if on day one we have an opportunity to stop and start analyzing text? Well, there's some instruction support for your teacher. There is nothing groundbreaking about a close read. As a matter of fact, when I described what the teachers are doing, isn't that what teachers have always done with selections for the most part? Right? They introduce, you read through some of the selection, you have the students go back in, and they start to analyze and look through it, and then they do some independent activities. What we've done is clearly labeled it. That's the biggest difference, as we've clearly shown teachers where that structure is falling into place. And that's the idea behind conducting a close read. And there's the support to conduct the close read and gives them a general idea. As I mentioned, in their wraparound, they have the first read and second read. You can see that they're citing text evidence. We're encouraging the students to go back in independently, too, because we want them to find the areas they're interested in analyzing. Yes, we have some direction for those students that maybe can't, but I always ask, who's an avid reader in here? Like you just love reading? I mean, I know all of us, but I read mostly technical stuff. Because as a matter of fact, everyone in here, 85% of your day is reading technical stuff, no matter if you read, how avid of a reader you are, because guess what you're in? Teacher editions all day long. That's technical information, really. The thing is, if you're an avid reader, do you turn to the middle of the book to page 65 and do a little preview of the topic on page 65? You don't. Where do you start? You start page 1, word 1, and start reading. That is a shift for some of your teachers. In the lower grades, we call it a picture walk. No more picture walks. We want them to discover the story as it's unfolding, instead of having too much of a preview. That's different when we're in these, isn't it? Because this is a different level of instruction. The selections, though, we want them to discover so that their comprehension comes from their interests. Because what's the other thing that oftentimes we do when we preview a book? We point out what we think is super important. Students may say, well, I don't think that's as important as this is. And you go, but I say it is, and I have a college degree. No. So we want them to start making those kinds of choices as they're looking through, answering questions, writing about the topic. Because remember, that's going to be closely tied to it also, is the writing. It's going to take practice for the students to also get comfortable with moving through a text more independently and struggling through a text. And that's okay, because we're going to give them the support they need, but we're exposing them to grade level because that's where we want them to end up. Please work. Okay. So you had asked about EL instruction. You will see at point of use throughout the TE, it references EL instruction. So on every single page, pretty much in the wraparound parts, it will say, for your English language support, for students whose first language is Spanish or French. Even if a student's primary language is English, it's the only language they have, and they're struggling with the English language, are they an English learner? Okay? So I tell people all the time, because I taught English language strategies 100% of the time, because I had so many migrant kids or Spanish-speaking kids being in Southern California. And I saw my struggling English-speaking kids improve more than when I wasn't using EL instruction. Because it just helped them. It's good instruction. It's smart instruction. But in addition to that, we have a Tier 2 write-in reader. And when we come back, by the way, I always like to take a 10-minute break every about 50 minutes. We're going to walk through the different tiers of intervention for journeys. We already talked about Tier 1. Tier 1 are leveled readers. Now look at this, what your teachers have. Your teachers have what we call our 8-page lesson plan. There's an 8-page lesson plan for every leveled reader. This is written, Irene was on the writing team for these lesson plans. So you have Irene Fountas writing your leveled reader lesson plans. And it takes through, here's her research on comprehension and fluency, questioning. You've got your thinking above or within, beyond, and about the text. So you have all that instruction. You have writing instruction now more at their instructional level, more English language development, opportunities for students to write, and opportunities for students to respond to their book. So you have an excellent resource. Again, your teachers don't need to go write lesson plans, nor do you, because here they are. Even has, look what's at the end here, you even have your running record. So you have that ready to go too, okay? So the resources, these usually come like that. So you have all of the lesson plans right next to the books. Teachers may have pulled these out. But where else can I get these? That's right. Everything is online. So you can see these online too if you're working with a student and you're in a different text. Now, that being said, I'm going to continue with Tier 1, then we'll jump into Tier 2. You made a great observation with on, above, and below. We have prescribed certain books for a week of instruction. That means we're saying these are the 5 books you would use with this selection, because those 5 books support the vocabulary from the selection. Those 5 books will continue the topic. In the case of snakes, this could be on reptiles, it could be on geckos, you know what I mean? Like it's continuing almost a mini theme. Even though this is not a themed program, there is a connected idea or topic throughout the week. You'll even see it references it as part of the domain. So it might be life science as the domain. So you have your cross-curricular. But you have another tool. You could pull any book from any level and use it to instruct a student because you want to focus on, say, a certain strategy. That's where this comes back in. Because now we're saying, I'm not concerned about the vocabulary connection, because I can always use the vocabulary reader to give that reinforcement. But I am concerned about the student's ability to, let's see, main ideas and details. So in the back, and remember this is online, of the Literacy and Language Guide in the appendix, you have in alpha order for each grade level all of the leveled readers listed. So if I know this student is a level Q, here's all my level Qs. And I want a leveled reader whose lesson plan focuses on main ideas, I can look over here and see main ideas. And I can match those two up, and I can go get, boy, I can't read, Stagecoach Travel. And pull Stagecoach Travel, and now I've got a level Q that's main ideas. So this would be a selected use of these books. So we have the prescribed path, saying these are the books that you're going to use this week that connect back to the loose theme and to the vocabulary and to the skill and strategy for that week. And then I have a selected, because you just might need to work with main ideas, level Q. All right? 30 titles per level. So if you think about it, you've got 30, 60, 90. You've got 120 different titles with the vocabulary reader. Then you add in the ELL. They're not different titles, but now you have another 30 additional options. 6 packs of each. So that's how everything's packaged. Because these overlap, they're not in alpha order. Meaning there could be a Q in here that's on level, but that Q shows up in below level later down the road, right? You know, so they're a Q at the beginning of the year on level, well, that below level kid might be in a level Q in December. So there's level Qs in there. If you had the option or opportunity to get your own set, you could also easily spin this around and just re-put everything in alpha order. So you'd have all your Qs in order, and everything, okay? Now, we don't recommend that for classroom teachers if they're using the prescribed pathway, because, boy, you wouldn't be able to find the book. But if you were using it more as a book room resource, I could flip them around and just put them in alpha order completely. And then I'd have my LLG, my Literacy and Language Guide, and my leveled reader 8-page lesson plan, and I'm off and running. There is a small group tab in the core TE. It has instruction for the leveled readers. Ignore it. Don't do anything with it. Okay? Because this is something that I want to make sure everyone understands. On the small group tab in the teacher edition, the small group tab, it has instruction for the leveled readers. It is not as in-depth instruction as the 8-page lesson plan. So stick with the 8-page lesson plan. Plus the 8-page lesson plan is more portable. Okay? You don't have to lug the big TE around. You got the 8-page lesson plan. All right? So I'm just giving you that heads up. And I say this because, again, 6 years, well over 10,000 teachers I've trained at this point in journeys, and 99% of all of them want to use the 8-page lesson plan over the instruction in the core TE. Okay? Core TE is much more basic lesson planning. Maybe if we're school districts that have not or are just starting to embrace guided reading. I know that might sound insane, but there are some schools out there that are still learning how to, really work through the guided reading process. So that's all Tier 1 discussion. We good with that? Then we have Tier 2. And I love this Tier 2. Absolutely love it. I tell you that not because I work for HMH, not even because I'm a former teacher. I tell you it because I have a child with special needs. So for 15 years, as a parent, I've looked at how do we intervene for people that need a good intervention. And this is about as close to getting it right as I've ever seen. Now, why is that? This is your write-in reader. Write-in reader. You'll notice this. Look, They read and they write on every page. Guess what vocabulary is in here? The anchor text, the same vocabulary, maybe not as many of the words. Guess what the topic's around? That loose theme. So am I having fourth grade discussions with fourth grade vocabulary, with fourth grade topics? Yes, but now the readability is 6 to 18 months below grade level. So are they in third grade material? No, just the readability's lower. They're in fourth grade material. That's number one, which is important to me, especially as a former fifth grade teacher and as a parent. Is now you're not putting baby book in their hands. Okay? Then there's this incredibly powerful piece. After they've practiced the skill and strategy, because remember, it's the same skill and strategy that they're doing with the anchor text, it tells them, now go back into the anchor text and apply what you've been practicing at more of a readability level. Bridging it back. Because oftentimes when we give intervention, where does the student stay? In the intervention. Because what's missing? The bridge back to grade level, which is where we want to get them. That's the ultimate goal, to get them back to grade level. This is just a special, special piece. The instruction for this, the red tab in the back of your core TE. The red tab in the back of your core TE says intervention on it. It says intervention. That not only has the instruction for the write-in reader, but has other Tier 2 instruction also. Okay?
So that here is the instruction for that reader.
For the write-in reader. Okay? This is another groundbreaking decision that we had to fight with legal to do. You can actually print the intervention teacher edition pages. I don't know if you know that publishers do not allow TEs to be printed. That's a no-no. Because, we own this. We don't want it getting into the hands of or being distributed. But I couldn't believe it. You can actually print. And why do we do that? For you guys. Do you need a 6th set of the entire teacher edition? No, but you might work with intervention so you could print just those intervention pages instead of lugging around the big old TE. Okay? Questions on Tier 2?
This might be more directed to Lisa instead of you, but if we use this Tier 2 intervention, is this going to count towards the RTI that we would use for like our PST and IEP? Because I know there's a list of like approved interventions. I would assume yes, we just have to add it. Okay. Can I use this as like a form, please? And it's a PST form, correct? Jen, a PST form? I'm sorry, it was a county generated. What? It was a county generated. But it's through PST, correct? Well, whenever, during IEP chairperson meeting, we had like a approved list of students had to be in a consistent intervention for like 2 years prior to the IEP in order to get all of that. I may not be wording it correctly, but all kinds of, yeah. Is there a space right now to do other or not? I don't believe so.
So, you take the PST form while you're looking at the IEP, so the LMNOP can help the QRST. I mean, A, B, C, right? Okay. I love acronyms. They crack me up. Yes?
The first page of the red tab, it has like strategic intervention, and it says like lesson 6, blah, 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 blah,
Okay.
but then it goes to day 1.
Okay.
There's day 1 of lesson 6.
Correct.
Okay.
And remember, it's not only instruction for the write-in reader, it's also additional intervention. Okay, so it houses all of the intervention for that lesson. Great question. Okay, now what tier's next? Okay, this tier is one that we really didn't go through with your teachers because Tier 3 really is supposed to be additional, right? I mean, that's the definition of Tier 3, in addition to their 90 minutes of instruction they should have intervention. I know that doesn't always happen. The point is, not every teacher has one of these kits by design. There's no reason for every teacher to have one of these kits. But there is a reason we brought it for you today, because this is your Tier 3 skills-based intervention. Skills-based intervention. It's called decoding power. Okay? So these are probably, I don't know, Angie, we could check maybe one per school. I'm not sure how many are in each school, or, you know. Yeah. You may not have. It may be something that we're going to look at as a future to add on. It may be because you already have interventions in place. I want to show you what's available in Journeys because I need to make sure you understand what's available. So if you go back and you find that it was not part of your purchase, don't worry about it. I'm sure you have other interventions in place. Because what is Tier 3? Is this connected to the anchor text? Decoding power. It's Tier 3. Tier 3 is outside of core instruction, right? Tier 2 is connected to core instruction. Tier 1 obviously is. But Tier 3 is outside. So if you already have an intervention in place, you wouldn't necessarily need this. But we do have something in place for Tier 3 intervention if you're looking and saying, I think there's value in that. Okay? So it's called Decoding Power. Covers your 5 pillars. Decoding, fluency, phonics, phonemic awareness, whichever one I just forgot. Okay? Not so much comprehension in this kit. Yeah, in this kit, not so much comprehension. So that's really what's in here. System 4 through 6 actually goes all the way down into first grade intervention. But it goes all the way up for 6th grade students. Okay? So that's why it says System 4 to 6. That means it's targeted for 4 through 6th grade. However, if a student tests that they need some basic sound letter identification, it has that intervention in there. It does. As a pre-test, a placement test, it has ongoing assessments to monitor progress. Okay? Maybe it's not going to work. All right. We're pressing on. Okay. Another one of my absolute favorite things we've done in this program is how we're addressing writing. We absolutely connect it, obviously, back to the anchor text, and then the texts with students write. This might be a little different model than many of your teachers are used to. There is something called My Write Smart, which is online, so they can actually, it's like a word processor and can collaborate with the teacher, so the teacher could go in and comment on their draft, those kinds of things. They can annotate in the book online, so they can actually put notes in their online text, so they can write as they go through. You have additional writing instruction. So not only do you have the writing instruction in your core TE, there are actually 189, you don't need to remember that number, I just know it because I've done this way too many times. There's 189 additional mini lessons in here. The first 60 match up directly with the core instruction book. So the first 2 go with lesson 1, the next 2 go with lesson 2, and so forth. But from 61 on, it could be if I wanted to write more about poetry, or if I wanted to pick one of the 6 traits and focus on voice, there's 2 on voice. Or sentence fluency, there's 2 on sentence fluency. Or persuasive writing, there's 2 more on persuasive writing. It's just, they're all right, all the instructions right back here, all of the additional writing instruction. Okay? You have more than enough writing in your core. More than enough. The writing pathway in Journeys is fantastic. This is additional. So if you do need additional, or if you're doing some writing intervention, those might be the mini lessons you pull from. So let's take a look at how, every time I set this down, let's take a look at how the writing, I already mentioned that. Okay, so this really lays out. You will not see this anywhere. This is just for my display. You will see, though, if you were to turn, remember the green pages are language arts? This would be the 5 days for lesson 1. So that'd be, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5 for lesson 1. So that green page, after we looked at grammar, spelling, then you'd see your writing. That'd be those 5 days. The next lesson, that'd be these 5 days. I want to show you the big picture, because this is very powerful how we've put the writing together. When we look at, in this case, we're talking about persuasive writing or argumentative writing or opinion writing is what we're calling it these days. Persuasive letter, we write. Look what we do here. We introduce the model, we focus on a trait, connect it back to our reading, and then look, we pre-write, draft, revise, and edit. So we actually go through and write a piece in 1 week. Then look at the next one, opinion paragraph. Aha! Now within the genre of persuasive writing or opinion writing, we're now a different application of opinion writing. So we focus on a trait. This time the trait changed. Sometimes it doesn't change. Pre-write, draft, revise, and proofread. Then look, a persuasive paragraph. So we've done a persuasive letter, an opinion paragraph, and now a persuasive paragraph, all within the genre of persuasive. I don't know about you, but when I was taught to teach writing, and when I was teaching my 5th graders writing, they would pick a topic, and they would hammer on that topic for 4 to 5 weeks. Again, I'm just telling you how I was taught and how I applied it at first. Here what we're doing is we're having them write shorter pieces more often, which actually ends up being more writing. Watch what happens here. The first 3 weeks, they're writing to learn. They're writing to learn. What is opinion writing? What is persuasive writing? How is argumentative writing applied? So they're writing to learn about the genre. Then, the last 2 weeks, look what happens here. We call it our writing workshop, and I don't mean the writing workshop model. I mean writing workshop. We're going to take them through the process. Writing to learn, learning to write. Now we're taking them through the process. So they're going to get an extended pre-writing. Carries it over into the next week, an extended draft, a revise, edit, and look what happens there that didn't happen any of the other weeks. Publish. Okay? If you notice, we didn't publish these. They could go back and publish any of those. So now look, how many published pieces could they have at the end of a 5-week rotation in Journeys? 1, 2, 3, 4. And typically in a 5-week, how many published pieces would they have? Traditionally, if we think of traditional writing, they'd have one topic. The first 3 might be shorter, but now look, what if they write 1 paragraph here, 2 paragraphs here, 2 paragraphs here, and 3 here? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs. And give me the real numbers, come on, those traditional numbers. How many paragraphs do we have our students write? 5 paragraphs. And how many sentences are in each paragraph? 3 to 5. And what is the first sentence? Topic sentences. What are the 3 in between? Yes, and what's the last one? And what is the first paragraph? Introduction, and what are the three in between? The body, and what's the last one? Okay, structure is an absolute must in writing, but content must outweigh structure. Because what I'll get from my 4th and 5th grade teachers especially is they say, well, Stuart, they have to write where formally? What do they have to do that they have to write a 3 to 5 paragraph essay park? And I go, fair enough. If they write a beautiful, just structured perfection, 5 sentences, 5 paragraphs, 3 body, concluding paragraph, and it's off topic, what do they get? Get a 0. If I've got a sloppy, kind of not quite, it's 4.5 paragraphs, and this one only has 2 sentences in it, one of the paragraphs, but it's on topic, they just outscored the other person, didn't they? So what do we teach first? Content. We want to say, get some rich content going, have some good discussions going, but we're not avoiding structure, because they do need to understand structure. Writing to learn. What is an opinion paragraph? Learning to write. How does the writing process work? Okay, so we're front-loading, hey, content. I've done this for years. I've worked with a lot of teachers, and I found that even in my own teaching, that I was editing my students out of their paper. And what do I mean by that? Well, yeah, changing their thoughts. Okay, instead of saying, that was a really good play. Well, why don't you use fantastic? Because I don't use fantastic. It's not their voice. Right? But we edit them out sometimes because we're trying to get this polished piece. My first degree's in philosophy. The one great thing about it is I'm not ever like married to one idea. I mean, I'm married to the one idea of being married to my wife. Okay, let's get that off the table. But other than that, I'm more than happy to like change something. And I was like, as a fifth grade teacher going, I just don't think this is the students, they're not owning their paper because I was editing so much out of it. And so I stopped. And the parents were like, their papers aren't as good. I go, that's because their papers are theirs now. And guess what? They want to write. Before it was like, oh, because they had to go through the process. Because I spent so much time in editing. And I thought, did some research, looked into some things, and found that I needed to do more in pre-writing. Student comes up, I don't know what to write about. Okay, what'd you do at recess? Played basketball. Great, write about playing basketball. When they go sit down, they put, I played basketball. They go like, now what? I go, well, what happened? We won. Well, why don't you write that? We won the game. And then they're like, now what do I write? I go, well, how'd you win? Well, I scored the winning basket. Well, then put that. I scored the winning basket. What else happened in the game? Well, Susie fell down. Why'd she fall down? Because I pushed her. Write that down. Because now you've admitted it, and I've got it on paper. And they put down, I pushed Susie. I go, did you try to help her up? And I said, no. And I go, that's because you like Susie. I like Susie. The point is, we're guiding them through the writing process. They do have ideas. We need to have them have the ownership ideas, and that's exactly what we do in Journeys, is give them a rich environment to discuss writing. It says persuasive paragraph. No S on the end, right? Don't let them get away with that. Fifth grader comes up and is like, I wrote a paragraph. Go, fine, write two more. Well, it says write a paragraph. And I go, yeah, it means write a paragraph one after another. I had one kid come up to me, he's like, I wrote my paragraph. And I said, okay, how many sentences? He goes, 5 sentences. I go, great. And I go, you didn't get the memo, but fifth grade? No, you have to have 8 supporting sentences. So you have to have a topic, 8 supporting sentences, including sentences. He goes, really? I go, yeah. Because I didn't know that. They didn't tell us that in 4th grade. And they went back and he's writing. And then Tommy comes up and same thing. I got my 5 and I go, oh, you didn't get the memo? You have to have 7. Because I forgot what I told the other kid. So I was like, you have to have 7. And the other kid's like, hey, I have to have 8. And I'm like, it's Tommy. It's Tommy. Just a joke. The point is, don't let him get away with that. If a teacher says, because teachers may see this, and I completely understand it, and say there's not enough writing in Journeys. There's more than enough writing if we understand the goal of the writing. We've simplified the instruction to give more emphasis on the student content. So sometimes that simplified instruction ends up looking like less writing. But remember, we're doing the embedded grammar. We're doing vocabulary, using vocabulary cards, real-world pictures. We even do the vocabulary in context. We teach them how to use context clues to the point where the vocabulary test at the end of the week includes words that were not given at the beginning of the week. And teachers are like, why would you do that to the kids? What am I testing there? Their ability to use context clues. I'm testing something different. Are they able to use context clues to figure out new words? And are they acquiring and using the words that were given to them? Do I see them in their writing? Do I hear them using them? Those are the kinds of things. Because when I got vocabulary at the beginning of the week, when did I study it? Come on. That's right, I was very conscientious. Thursday nighter, not like my lazy Friday morning friends on the bus. That's right. And then what do we do on the test? Regurgitate them, and then did I ever use them again? Nope. There was no connectivity. There was no seeing them in something where they're going to see them in the anchor text, and they're going to see them in their leveled readers. And there was no application, which that's where they get the application is in the writing. So we do want them to encourage them to write new words, but we don't necessarily want to change their voice. All right, so we talked about how there are additional resources. Now stick with me here, because this can confuse. Behind the small group tab, there's instruction on leveled readers. And I told you to do what with that? Don't worry about it. behind the small group tab, there's also interventions, additional interventions, more Tier 1 interventions. You can see struggling readers, reteach, because the red tab intervention in the back is what tier? Tier 2. So our Tier 1 additional instructional intervention outside of our leveled readers is also found behind the small group tab, because when might I do that? During small group. I pull that struggling reader group, and in addition to what I'm doing, I have instruction behind there. Last thing, and then I'm going to jump online and show you some online things. Unless you have any questions on our intervention or on our writing. Do you guys all kind of get what I was doing with the writing and what we've tried to accomplish here? Professor Susan Wise Bauer at the College of William and Mary, she said, I've never in all my years of instruction asked a single student to write a 5-paragraph essay. She's like, I don't understand. She was one of the people that I first saw when I was doing my research. I don't get why we're so really focused in. Because her point was, how many words do you need to make up a paragraph? Or as few as you need. Can one word be a paragraph? Absolutely. Absolutely it can be, right? I wrote a 101-word sentence. My friends and I, we didn't like this one philosophy professor, so we had a challenge who could write the longest continuous sentence that wouldn't get like marked up red. She was one of those where she slit her wrist and just like bled all over the paper. Ugh. Told me I'd never amount to anything, and I'm like, and sure enough, mine came back with the least amount of markups, and so I won the challenge. 101 sentences. It was like there were therefores, whereas, thereunto, and furthermores all over the place. It was outstanding. I have no idea why I just told you guys that. Let's talk a little bit about assessment. So we're talking about writing and the importance of writing. You have your online pathway through My Write Smart, which really we'll dive deeper into. We were having a terrific discussion during the break about sometimes I have to just make the decision, because you cannot be proficient at everything in this program out of the gate or even in the first year. There's too many components to it. Furthermore, your 4th and 5th grade teachers, what program are we assuming those students had for the last few years in school? Journeys, right? So some of the routines and some of the background knowledge and some of the discussions, there's going to have to take time to get those kids kind of filled in, and that's natural. That's also why things like My Write Smart, we're not going to dive in deep today, because it just becomes too much. And so over my years, I've kind of compartmentalized on what are the essentials to get your teachers up and going, and what can we layer on as we continue our relationship together as support staff for you. Yes?
So with that thought in mind, in reality, what amount of minutes does this program need to achieve all this wonderful stuff?
90 is what we recommend. Now remember, 90 is, oftentimes people don't include their writing block, their spelling instruction, their grammar instruction, the vocabulary. I mean 90 minutes to do all of it, not just reading. I work with a number of schools that have 90. I've worked with schools that have as few as 75, and we've figured it out. And then, of course, I have schools that have incredible schedules that also include 30 minutes of RTI time only, so they end up having almost 150, because they have 120 plus then 30 for RTI. I mean, so I've worked with all kinds of schools, but 90, this can easily be done in 90-minute block. You just have to be smart about the instruction, because you could do this for 360 minutes easily and have enough. Actually, before I do assessment, since you asked that question, it's a good question, I am going to show you real quickly how the student book kind of is set up. Well, I'll show you when we go online. Because on Monday, it asks for us to do a read aloud. The read aloud's in the teacher edition. The goal of the read aloud is modeling fluency and listening comprehension. So even though it is an option, you don't need to project it up and highlight things. It's introducing the vocabulary, but you're going to have all week to work with the vocabulary, so you don't need to go in deeply on that. And By the way, how many of your teachers do some kind of read aloud to their kids at some point during the day? Probably every day. Most teachers do. So I tell them, you get back that 5-8 minutes on Monday by simply doing our read aloud during your read aloud time. It doesn't have to be before. It could be done if you do it after lunch. They come back from lunch and you read, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to them. Great. Instead, on day one, you read our read aloud because it introduces some vocabulary. Then you read the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe the rest of the week. Gain back some minutes there. Leveraging that time. Kids are bored stiff with the read aloud. Stop. Move on. It's listening comprehension and modeling fluency. We do that on a daily basis. I don't know if you guys know the Hooray for Diff and Do for Day book. Because we're talking about assessment now, you must make sure your 4th and 5th grade teachers read it to their students too. My 5th graders loved it just as much as my 1st graders. Because it is about a school, a typical Dr. Seuss school, where they have to take a standardized test. And it's like now this principal who was called Principal Mr. Lowe, so you can imagine, he was the saddest principal that any of us know. So it's like, what did he have to do? He was like all stressed out, and he's like, and if we don't pass it, then we're all going to have to go to dreary Flobbertown. What was Flobbertown? It was a place where everyone dresses the same. They walk in single file lines. The dogs are afraid to bark. It's like, again, just a place you didn't want to have to go. Funniest thing is, it looks like a Catholic school line. And I had a Catholic school person point that out. He said, hey, it looks like our school. I'm like, don't say that. You're nice people. But it's just funny because it's like a little black suits on, and they're walking. But it goes like this. I've always lived in Dinkerville. My friends all live there too. We go to Diff and Do for school. We're happy that we do. Our school is at the corner of Dinkzuber and Dinkzot. It looks like any other school, but we suspect it's not. This is how much kids liked it, because that's how many times I read it, that I actually have it practically memorized. But the heroine of the story is the teacher. And everyone's stressed about taking this test. And she says, guys, we've taught you many things. We've taught you red and white make pink. But we've taught you something more important. We've taught you how to. And so they say and so the kids are like, oh, there were things on there that we all knew we knew. There were things that we didn't know either, but we could figure them out. And they scored like 1,000,000%. And at the end, they sing a song. I've always lived in Dinkerville. My friends all live there too. We go to Diff and Do for school. This is on record too. Oh, I'm going to have to pay him off. Okay. Our assessment is geared to give your students the right kind of support without over-assessing them. Can you over-assess? Absolutely, because we're going to give many different options. I told you, there's additional options in your grab-and-go for assessments, for fluency assessments and things along those lines. There's beginning of the year tests. There's intervention assessments that go along with the Tier 2 intervention, so you can kind of get that ongoing. There's placement tests for our Tier 3. There's weekly tests that have 4 components to them. They don't need to all be given every week. Most of my teachers will give the comprehension test each week, but they might rotate the vocabulary with the grammar, because some may not need that every week. Or they could pick 4 from the vocabulary, 4 from the grammar, instead of doing all 10, and make a customized test. So you have all of the different tests, including ExamView. If you're familiar with ExamView, that gives you full customization of the test. So even if I had a student that had an IEP, and it were a multiple choice test, and their IEP stated they should never have more than 3 multiple choice answers, and the test was structured with 4, ExamView, you just drop down menu, pick 3, turns the whole test into 3 instead of 4. I can change the questions, change the answers, all of those kinds of things, and that's the ExamView is terrific because you can really customize the test. We have close reader tests, and we have cold read tests. So opportunities for a selection they've never seen, and those are relatively short. They're 1 page of reading for the most part, and they're 4 to 5 questions, 4 multiple choice, 1 essay. Cold reads. We have unit tests, which can be 37 pages long, because it might have 5 different selections in it where students are answering comprehension questions. So again, we've got a battery of assessments, and I know that your curriculum map kind of mapped out when your teachers are responsible for giving certain kinds of tests, and I will say it's one of the most thoughtful pieces I've seen in 15 years of publishing. It is very well done. Your curriculum map's one of the best I've ever seen. I told Kaki that. I was like, this is fantastic. I'm going to steal it. Claim that I made it and sell it to other districts. Oh, I'm on tape for that too. Angie, where were you on that one? Come on. And we have performance tasks. So the performance tasks most closely mirror their high stakes assessments, because this is where they're really going to do more writing and more explaining. So they have performance tasks also. All right, so before we move into technology, one last thing that I skipped because it is brand new and I forgot. They have a little book called Close Reader, okay? This is a close reading application for the second selection of the week, okay? So the first selection has all the close reading instruction right in your core TE. The second selection, it's used as a comparison text, so text-to-text analysis. If I wanted to do more with close reading, I could then pull out the close reader, and now I can do a second close reading with the second selection.
So the close reader has the companion text.
Exactly. And one other thing that you won't have to worry about for a very long time, you will see your teachers have this. They may ask about the magazine. This does not come into play until Unit 6. So if they say, what do I do with this adventure magazine? Go, wait until spring break. We'll have that discussion then, because they don't need to worry about it. This replaces their student book in Unit 6, giving them just something fresh and new. It's the end of the school year. They've just taken some standardized testing. It's, you know, it's really cool looking. It's super, not that this isn't, it's just a different application. So the novels and the Reading Adventure magazine, these become your leveled readers and student text for Unit 6. So again, if you're asked about it, tell them you won't have to worry about that for a long time from now. Set them on a shelf. We'll have that discussion. Stuart will be back. We can ask him those questions at a later date. All right. If you see dashboard, just look up this way. Yeah, just look at me for a moment. The only time I can get any attention. Gosh, a lot of you are on. Oh, okay, outstanding. So what I'm going to do with you right now is go through how to browse through the materials online. Everything I've shown you is online. The exception of the decoding power, I don't think all of the contents are there. It's relatively new. I think most of them are on there. The point is, everything else I've shown you is housed online. It's on there, yep, everything. Now,
The opposite case. One of the questions my teachers want to know is, will they have access to projectables when they don't have internet? They want hard copies of projectables.
they can easily save them as a PDF or print them out. Yep, download them.
They're saying like when they go to access if they don't have internet, so they can't do that.
They need to do some planning.
Do it in advance.
Yeah, they need to do some planning ahead of time. If they and say, hey, any projectables you're going to need for your next week's lesson, you need to get them hard copy if you guys are having internet problems. Okay, if you're on this screen, most of you will need to click on 4th or 5th grade. You will not see grades K through 3 unless your home school is Duke. Because, well, no, not even Duke yet. Maybe you see the 2014. Point is, the reason being, your district purchased 4th and 5th grade. So 4th and 5th grade are what are activated right now. Okay? If you need to see other grade levels, we can supply an access word that will give you evaluator access, and you'll be able to see all of the grade levels if you do need that. It is temporary, so just understand you have to re-register after, I think, 3 or 4 months, although lately I've been seeing the expiration date pushed out to a year. So if you need that, Angie can get you that. If you're in here, you'll notice, first and foremost, kind of how to orient yourself. Sure. Okay. So orient you to a few things here. We had a great discussion during the break about the My Smart Planner. Similar to the My Right Smart, it is a good tool. However, at this point, I think it's a next level discussion. I think it could be overwhelming to try to have teachers engage in a whole new planner as well as a new reading, new writing, new grammar. Okay? And again, just through my experience, I found we're just going to hold that off. We're actually going to have you look at it. Khaki can look at it. You guys can get together and kind of decide, oh, we do like it. We want to use it. Then it can become a focus of our future trainings. Okay? But for our purposes today, I'm going to kind of skip right over it. If you're a tinkerer and you like playing around with technology, go for it. Mess around with it. See what it's like. And then give some feedback. You may find you don't want to use it. You may find you want to use it. We can definitely fine-tune the training. If teachers come to you and say, I don't remember how to set up a class or I need some help, you can direct them to the Help Center and to guides and tutorials. You do not need to be an expert on this stuff, okay? They got a much deeper technology training than you're going to get today because they have to do some functionalities that you will not need to do, like setting up a class and putting students in a class. You simply don't need to do that in the way you work with your students because you wouldn't assign a test to them. Their homeroom teacher would assign the test to their student, okay? September 23rd. September 23rd. Yep. It's September 23rd for sure because I was double booked. It's a Friday. Hey, let's go forth and we'll worry about the 23rd. Let's go forth. I'm just trying to be mindful of time. Yes. I'm scheduled for it right now, but we can double check after we're done. We can double check that when we're done. Double check it when we're done. We're going to table the 23rd for now, throwing it aside, kicking it to the curb. All right. Because I want to make sure those of you that may need to get your kids or just really want to go home, can get you out of here. Okay. When you're in here, you got 4th and 5th grade. You have quick link icons here. This is nothing more than grabbing the entire book and putting the book in front of you. Okay? I'm going to show you an easier way and more efficient way of navigating. All right? And then I'll have you do it, try it out, and then we'll come back and see how y'all did. And if you need another demonstration, no problem. If you feel I'm going too fast, no problem. Say, Stuart, can you show me that again? I'm happy to do it. I'm going to show you everything 2 or 3 times. I completely understand. I know this incredibly well. I'm one of our technology trainers. So not only do I do Journeys and Journeys Tech, I do Think Central technology training all the time. And there's different learners in here. And if I'm not going fast enough from you and you click ahead and then you ask me to show you something, can't do it. You got to stay with me. All right? Fair? Okay. So these will just get you, like, you could open right to the student ebook, but this is grabbing the whole student book. What I can do is come up here to browse. And just watch me do it once. I'll have you try it out, and then we'll come back, okay? I can come up to Browse. I have many different programs because I train different states. I have to come down and drop down to this. You'll only see the grade level choices, okay? If for some reason you see anything else, here's Journeys 2017. Just look for Journeys 2017 and ignore everything else. So here I am, Journeys. So now, I clicked on Browse, I chose my grade level. When I click on Program Structure, now it's going to allow me to drill down and find the specific components I need to teach a certain lesson. So in this case, if I go to Unit 1 and click on Unit 1, look what it gives me. Under Assessment, it'll give me all of my unit assessments. Here's the PDF. Here's the performance assessment. Here's some of the grab and go. So there's everything I would need that would go along with the unit. So that's unit, big picture. Look what it says here under unit. It now says Lesson 1. I click on Lesson 1. Now it's going to give me that week of instruction. Because remember, in Journeys, a lesson means a week's worth of instruction. Our company, our math program, a lesson means 1 day of instruction. So I have to compartmentalize. I'm like, which one am I doing? So this is 1 week of instruction. So now everything I would need for the week is right here. Everything I need for the week. So again, the small group instruction would be back to the extra interventions in this case. Lesson level resources. Again, this would be for the whole week. Oh, you know what? I didn't show you the ELL. Remind me to show more of the ELL. I accidentally skipped it. Here's some of the other additional language works. But again, remember, this is anything you would need for the week. Well, what if I want to see exactly what I'm teaching on day 3? I can click on day 3, and now look. Day 3 comes up, and here are my leveled readers. Okay? That is the only thing I need you to remember. The leveled readers online are housed under day 3. Does not mean they have to be done on day 3. It was an organizational thing. We had to put them under a day. So the leveled readers are under day 3. Yes, I'll show you those here in a moment. I can view this leveled reader. If I pull this up on an iPad and I click view in, iBook, it will actually put a copy on my iPad. So now I would actually have it offline. Okay? Another functionality that my teachers really like and that you may want to encourage them to use is if you notice here, here's the name of the leveled reader, and there it says assign. So I can build a customized leveled reader library for each one of my students. I can give them access to all the leveled readers so they could freely read any of the leveled readers, and I could also then put a specific book that Angie's working on into Angie's box. Into Kaki's working on a different book, that could be her book. And at the end of that week, it archives it into old assignments. So I can click on old assignments and see all of the books that have been assigned to me throughout the school year. It's a very nice feature that my teachers really, embrace as far as assigning. Outside of assigning leveled readers, the only other thing they really assign on a regular basis would be assigning of tests if they were giving online tests. That's the level of training they need. You do not need to be proficient in that. If they ask you about assignments and those kinds of things, honestly, just tell them that's going to be a focus of a future training. Okay? Because you can't be the expert at everything. All right? And especially being an expert at things you're not going to apply. Now, the one thing you are going to apply are the different materials. So I can even come up to my grade level resources, and now it gives me 4th grade, so it gives me all of the different items I might need. Here's my grab and go. You asked about the projectables or those kinds of things. Here's the grab and go, so if I needed to look at an instructional routine. Here's all of the different, remember the additional resources at the back of the grab and go? Here they all are here. My writing lessons. So everything I would need. The student book can be read aloud. It can be done in 2 ways. If you're in the student edition, it'll actually read it paragraph by paragraph. So they have to push each paragraph. If you wanted an ongoing reading, it's right here in the student book audio. So then it would just essentially start reading from the very first page and just keep on reading. So just like an audio book. Here's the write-in reader audio. People have asked me, do the leveled readers have audio? Technically they do. Instructionally, should a student listen to a leveled reader? Absolutely not. Because what level of readability should it be? They should be able to read it, because they're supposed to. So it's there. We took it off at another time because Irene was like, what do you guys really? The point is, if a teacher asks, you shouldn't have it read to the students, okay? Because it is also in a PDF form. So when you layer something onto a PDF, not to get too technical to you, Adobe goes, whoa, 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 outside content, this is not good, this could be a virus. So every single time you click on the audio on a leveled reader, you have to click, yes, this is approved, yes, this is okay for this to play. So it's also kind of a hassle. And again, instructionally, it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's my notebook. There are whiteboard lessons that go along with the program. Here's the writing handbook for all of those 189 additional mini lessons. Here's the 60 mini lessons that go along with so these are practice pages. So again, you can see, I'm going to go through it again, then have you guys explore around. When I go home, I go here to browse. I choose the grade level I want to look at, just Journeys 2017, and the grade level, grade 5. And then I'm here. You can forget about standards. Okay? Well, okay. You can forget about the standards button. What this does is it would show you everywhere in Journeys that standard NT.218 is covered. That's a nice feature, but usually we're not going to need to do that. Because remember, in the TE, there's that big standards correlation. That gives you much more directed of what you're doing in that unit. So this is just another way to search through the products. So go to program structure and then simply drill down. Remember, day 3, so the third day, and well, the third day in unit 4 is still 1, 2, 3, so it's lesson 18. Leveled readers are housed there. Okay, it's always the third day, but that doesn't mean it's going to say day 3. Actually, it will, because watch, what am I talking about? Lesson 18 will have its day 3 too. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay? So you guys go ahead. You're in your, click on browse, look around, see what you can find. I'll give you guys about, and you can mix in a break for this 10 minutes of exploration. Come on back with me. Okay, so how did it go so far? You kind of feel like the browse is going to work for you?
I couldn't find the red thing in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that?
Sure.
I went to browse.
I'm going to show you 2 other things you can do here. You can also click in the search for resources box. Did a little bit at a time. So, then I could click intervention and here. And it'll bring up a number of different interventions. But watch what this is the one icon I want you to be aware of. Right here where it says Teacher Resources. This icon is very helpful. Because let's say I don't necessarily need to drill down to the day to find the resource. I just want to browse through a resource. I could come to my Teacher Resources. Because then look what it gives me. Here's all of my grab and go resources. Here's my Common Core exemplar. There's my close reader. Interactive whiteboard lessons. I can download them. Parent resources. You guys asked about projectables. Here's a real easy way to go to projectables that I can simply print pages. I think it'll only allow you to print 30 pages at a time or something like that, or maybe 10, but print 1 through 10 on the projectables. Save those as a file. Print 11 through 20, save those. Now you have all your projectables offline. Here's a reader's notebook. Here's the video hub, where there's some professional development videos that show instructional practices. So here are a lot of different, and then if you look here, here's a write and reader. And here are the English Learners Newcomer. This had one of the biggest upgrades from 2014 to 2017 was our ELL support. It was one of the biggest upgrades. First, I've already shown you how in the Teacher Edition, it's at point of use right in the TE. It's right there all the time. It used to have its own page, she'd kind of have to flip back and forth. Now it's just streamlined. It's right there for you. You then also have additional resources. You have a language workshop teacher guide that also goes along with a language support card. It's not in here. But you have your language support cards. They're about this big. And they have instruction on the back of them, and they have blue. You have your English language learner's handbook, and you have a newcomer's guide. So for those students that are just right out of country and here, the newcomers can orient them, okay? And then you have all of this additional language support. So I failed to mention that when my friend had asked, and I wanted to make sure I circled back to it. If you want to look more closely, you can definitely see more closely in here. So this is what I tell my teachers whenever they start to feel overwhelmed. You know how to teach reading. You know how to teach kids. These are good resources. Don't let the resources control your teaching. Let the resources enhance your teaching. And if there's a resource that's driving you insane, set it aside for now. Then pick it up as you go along. That's why I've already said today, if someone's going crazy on the Smart Planner, tell them, don't even worry about it right now then. If someone's going crazy on My Right Smart, I don't get it, I don't want to use it, say don't then right now. It's okay. What are the 2 things they need to do every week for reading? Days 1, 2, and 3, they do a close read. Day 4 and 5, they do comparing texts. That's their main goal. And then outside of that, the writing instruction, grammar instruction. We're pretty much there. And vocabulary instruction, forgot that. You know, those things right there, they're covered, okay?
Frustration that my teachers are experiencing aren't on your end. I don't think it's our support as far as technology. A lot of times when they go to log in, schools are even listed for them to choose from to pick our school. Nothing will load. They can't get in, so they're like, we're not even going to access it until we can get on. So I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah. I will tell you, infrastructure is one of the biggest issues in most districts. It just is. It's hard to get enough juice coming into a school for Wi-Fi to serve. It's tough. It's tough.
So they're like, we're not even going to bother anymore. We're done because every time we try to get in, we can't, or we get kicked out, or we can't see anything. So we're tired of planning with it when
Okay.
we can't use it. So
Maybe it could even be me stopping by the school one time or something. If maybe I can come down and stop in and just see if I can then help your tech department and our tech department come to a better solution. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? I'm sure you're going to have many more. We will be back. I will be back for your additional IRT meetings. I mean, that's as long as you want me back. Please want me back. Other than that, if you don't have any other questions, I will be up here for the next 20 to 23 seconds packing up, so feel free to not bother me.